Hello, everyone. I'm Allison Heath. I am the Director of Technology and Innovation at the Center for Data-Driven Discovery and Biomedicine at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And I'm excited to talk to you today about some of the work that we've been doing to accelerate pediatric research using interoperable cloud technology and platforms. So I'm going to go through a little bit today about D3b and the center I work at, one of the major projects that we work on, the Kids First Data Resource Center, and talk a little bit about how we've been addressing challenges in pediatric healthcare and research, the little bit of the technical implementation and architecture, and some of the results that we're seeing really by partnering with AWS to do these efforts. So a little bit about D3b and the center that I'm part of at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So D3b was really established to start looking across the different data landscapes in biomedical research. And we're part of the research arm of CHOP. And we look across a very large landscape and ecosystem of different data, information, knowledge, and try to bring impact and improve innovative care for all children through collaborative data-driven science. And really our vision is to be able to use data to empower breakthroughs for every child, every time, everywhere. On the right, you can see our building there in Philadelphia, where we're located. It's the post-COVID world, but as part of the hospital, we're right across the river there. And so the idea of D3b was really to create an integrated team of subject matter experts. So we have many different people across clinical spaces, translational space, data science, looking at oncology, diagnostics, surgery. We have a large portfolio of different research projects across this landscape. And I'm going to talk about one of the NIH-funded platforms that we developed, the Kids First Data Resource Center, today. As I said, we're organized into multiple different units, really with the idea to be able to have an integrated feel. So to really be able to use the different data platforms right in line with what we're doing with talking to researchers, different diagnostics, different labs, developing and really trying to accelerate that translational space to care. So I'm in charge of the Advanced Data Applications and Platform Technologies Unit, ADAPT, and we really think of how do we build the different tools and platforms that will allow other units to really advance the fields that they're working in. And so what we really think of our methodology is, as we all know, there's just an increasing amount of data being generated in this field. And how do we kind of think of this double funnel model of bringing in large scale data, providing it, getting it harmonized into information that people can use, having that information translate into knowledge, and ultimately scale to impact across many different pediatric diseases. And so part of this is a research platform that we built over the last couple of years, the Kids First Data Resource Center. And this project has really highlighted how cloud-based approaches can really create collaboration, bring together people across many different rare diseases in pediatrics, and understand and find new discoveries. So the vision of Kids First really aligns with the mission and vision of D3b, and the idea is really to alleviate suffering from childhood cancer and structural birth defects. And I've highlighted here collaborative research, and to really understand these diseases, find new discoveries, and very key, really support data sharing in this community so that we can really start to take a new approach to really understand childhood cancer and structural birth defects. Sometimes when people think about these diseases, they think about them as separate, but really when you start looking, especially along some of the genomics and genetics, a lot of these are really coupled together by the developmental landscape. So cancer being uncontrollable growth of cells, and structural birth defects often being cells that aren't growing that should. And how do those different pathways, those different things intersect, and how can we learn from the different diseases across this landscape? And so there's a real challenge here in that it's very multidisciplinary, and it's often relatively rare for a lot of these different diseases. So here's just a depiction of some of the different sample types and organ types that we handle in our platform. And you can see, it cross-cuts this. A lot of times diseases are classified by, certain kinds of organs like, brain cancer, lung cancer, congenital heart defects. And there's always specific things to that, but also being able to cross-analyze that and understand that there might be connections between these different organ systems, that a lot of these are systematic diseases, that problems in one part of your body are affecting other things, and then really being able to bring together those researchers and the people working on these different aspects into a platform where they can have serendipitous discoveries, be able to cross-analyze it, think of a new hypothesis of, each one of these organs is not disconnected like we show in this picture, but rather, something in the heart might impact the lungs, might impact the diaphragm, etc. And so mirroring what we see in that depiction across the different systems, the different types of diseases, I think our technology and the platform architecture tries to mirror this of how do we have the right tools for the different data types to be able to bring together different researchers in different places, looking at different levels of data, different levels of information, different levels of knowledge. And so all of our system currently is built on top of AWS, and this has been actually a really good partnership with the NIH STRIDES program. And we have many different layers to get to what most people are normally seeing, which is the portal or knowledge bases. So we have a set of framework services that does a lot of indexing, that does a lot of authorization. Cavatica is a strong partnership with Seven Bridges Genomics to really have a large-scale workflow system to allow bioinformaticians to have notebooks, scale their workflows. We also use that ourselves to harmonize a large amount of whole genome data. The portal, which I will actually talk a little bit more about the backend infrastructure there, of how we really drive search, cohort building, discovery. And knowledge bases where we're looking at maybe different specific aspects, PDC Bioportal being focused on cancer and somatic mutations. And then where we're really going of how do we bring in more clinical data flowing into the system to be able to understand not only the genomics or the genetics of these different diseases, but how that impacts treatment, outcome, and follow-up. So the Kids First portal is really where most people land first. It's open to anyone. I encourage you to go visit it. It's at portal.kidsfirstdrc.org. And you can go and immediately start exploring on a number of different data features. So I can look at phenotypes, I can look at the disease type, I can look at the data types that were created. And you can go through this workflow of finding interesting cohorts that might cross-cut multiple different studies. For example, I might be interested in looking at congenital heart defects and a certain type of cancer, for example, that I know have similar mutations, or data sets across these different studies. I can create what we often call virtual cohorts. So it wasn't a cohort that was created for the purposes of a specific research study, but really cross-cuts multiple different research studies with similar types of data. Save that, and then start doing other kinds of analytics. So take that from my user dashboard to some of the tools that I was pointing out in the previous slide to be able to do further analysis and work to understand what I'm seeing in that cohort of interest. So one of the big things about Kids First is that it's doing a lot of whole genome sequencing. So for every participant, we do a whole genome. Oftentimes we're doing families. So we're doing the parents, both the kid, the mom and the dad, sometimes even extended families. There's some studies that are quite complex, having siblings, uncles, aunts, to really try to understand some of the genetic aspects that are going on. And whole genome data really creates a complex, big, and controlled access data problem. So the security aspect of this is very important as well, of how do we bring in all the variants across the 2 billion base pairs that are different between the people with the different diseases and different control cases, and try to understand across many different things. So we're bringing in a lot of data here, and we've created an infrastructure on S3 where we take in those variants, we create Parquet files, and it's really nice because then from that location, the storage, we can go in and peer in and look at different things, layer different tools, share it on different with different policies, etc. So we shard it by access, and then what we do for our end users is that we have an on-demand Spark cluster that gets deployed. It understands what data they have access to, and then provides a Zeppelin notebook view. And we have created kind of canned notebooks to allow people to do quick start, to maybe they just want to do, there's several standard analyses that people do, but it's also for more power and advanced users. They can also go in there and really create new methods, new algorithms, and new ways of looking at the data. So we're in the beta phase of this. This is the controlled access data, but for a lot of folks, you can go into the portal right now and see aggregations of this, where we have 6 studies of the 5,000 participants. This is just a subset of what's in Kids First right now. We will be increasing this as we go over the next couple months. And you can start seeing just some of the numbers of this. So there's 250 million unique variants. The same genomic variation can occur in more than one person. So that gets up to almost 26 billion occurrences. And as you can imagine, as we start scaling to the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of participants, this number becomes very large. So as I noted, each variant occurs on average in about 178 participants. Each person has on average 48 million variants that we're indexing into the system. And interesting enough, there's other large population studies that we're tapping into, that we're trying to understand, what is disease causing, what is not disease causing. And you can see here a quick stat about, half of these variants are in some of these other large population studies, such as TopMed or NOMAD. And so really leveraging the scalability of the cloud, we've been able to solve a lot of those big data problems. What's been interesting is as we've done that, we've recognized that having more of the clinical data, so if you have a variant, you see something that's interesting, but what happened to that person? What kind of treatment did they get? What kind of outcome did they have? That's really important. And so we've really focused our most recent efforts and our most recent collaborations looking at how do we structure that data? How do we get that in? How do we provide that in line with the large-scale genomic data so that people can really use that in their analysis and understanding of these diseases? And so after looking across a lot of different technologies in the research space, there's a lot of different data models that people use. There's a lot of different study-specific clinical data tools, but we've really, I think, landed on a FHIR-based approach. So FHIR being an emerging standard in the healthcare interoperability space that is part of HL7's efforts. And it's really was originally, towards electronic medical records, not as much focused on research use cases, but what we found is being able to use that framework. We're able to easily extend it. We're able to put in more research data types. We're able to do things like de-identification. And we've been working with Amazon Health Lake to really start to bring in the research data that comes often in surveys or case report forms or other kinds of data matrices that people generate, and be able to bring that into one system where if we do have EMR data, we do have more extensive clinical data, we can bring that in, we can pull out the different features, we can do information extraction, and bring that into the systems alongside the genomic data. And then ultimately, we're also involved in a lot of work looking at interoperability between research platforms. So this is part of NIH's cloud platform interoperability effort. And so not only for Kids First DRC purposes, but really being able to interchange this and interlink it with some of those other data sets, for example, TopMed or others that I referenced in previous ones, where you not just in the pediatric space, but cross-analyzing with adult diseases, other rare disease sets, other cancer data sets that are in other cloud platforms. And so as I talk through some of the challenges of the pediatric research that we're doing and trying to build some of these data tools, really thinking about how we streamline these applications, how do we get data ingest, how do we get it released, how do we get it standardized and out to the community in a useful and powerful way, so that domain experts, clinicians, bioinformaticians, they don't have to redo all that work, but rather can use it and start immediately doing discovery and really accelerate that process. It's been really great to partner with the AWS Open Data Program. A significant portion of the Kids First data is part of that, and that has really, I think, empowered what we've been able to do. And as I walk through, really developing this portal for data exploration, behind the scenes, it's a very big data problem, but to the end user, they can immediately use that data, find cohorts of interest, and look at the genomic analysis. I didn't talk too much today, but very important are these integrations with partner platforms, such as Cavatica at Seven Bridges, Gen3 at University of Chicago. And we're really starting to see this pay off as new insights into pediatric diseases. So I have a link here where you can go and see some of the most recent publications. the new understanding of some of these genetic features across multiple different diseases that are under study in Kids First. And as I've alluded to throughout the presentation, I think a lot of this is a result of benefiting with an AWS partnership where we've worked very closely together. We're a small team, I think, relative. We have 2 people on our DevOps team that really run this infrastructure. We do have a number of developers who often contribute and help with that, but really needing to optimize and scale a secure infrastructure really has pushed some of the envelope of what we're doing here. And so it's really helped us to develop at scale and really focus on the downstream products, the downstream applications, and the results that we want to see. And we really went from 0 to managing a few petabytes of genomic data within a year using this setup. And I could show you a pretty complex architecture diagram. I won't do that today, but we leverage quite a few number of services behind the scenes to do the scalability and security. And then we're really excited about where things are going with HealthLake and FHIR and using Comprehend to create better both scalable and interoperable data workflows for clinical data. So thank you for listening today. I'm just representing a really large group of people who make this happen across multiple different partner sites that bring in all kinds of expertise, both technical, domain, disease, clinical, and we also work quite closely with a number of patient foundations who really help make sure and engage and make sure these efforts are going towards the right place. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. Feel free to reach out. Here's a couple of different of our sites, and I'm always interested in connecting with people and understanding ways that we can intersect pediatric research with many different endeavors in healthcare.